Hi, my name is Mike Senkbeil. I'm a partner at ShoreTech LLP. We're a CPA and consulting firm based in Waukesha, Wisconsin. I'm here today to talk to you about cybersecurity strategy and small business. Just a brief introduction and background on where I'm coming from. I've got 20 years experience in IT and consulting, and I've worked with small businesses and medium-sized businesses all those years. I have specific certifications in security, so this is an area of my strongest interest in IT. So I hold a CISSP and CISA certifications, so this is one of my favorite subjects. So today we're going to talk about an introduction to cybersecurity, and then we're going to get into the risks, responses, and tools available to address cybersecurity. And then specifically for small business, how to get started with establishing a cybersecurity program. And we'll discuss the conclusions at the end. So to kick it off, let's first look at a quote here from FBI Director Robert Mueller. He has a pretty stark quotation here saying that there are only two types of companies, those who have been hacked and those that will be. Even that is merging to one category, those who have been hacked and will be hacked again. That is a very strong statement, and he was trying to make a point to business owners that this is important, and it is happening all over the place. The FBI is usually the organization that gets the call due to the technical nature of hacking crimes. Businesses look to the FBI to help. And so the trends are established and clear, that threats are increasing and serious. So small businesses and large businesses alike need to pay attention. So there's another resource out there, the Verizon Data Breach Incident Report, which is a standard out. It's every year it's released. It's been out for 10 years now. This is 10th anniversary. And then there's some very clear trends, especially in recent years. In this report, and this does a good job summarizing a consortium's input on incidents of hacking and data breaches that have occurred. So the key concerns here are that the trend is that easy attacks that are low in difficulty, are becoming more popular. So it is not a complicated effort for a malicious actor, for bad guys, to go out and hack businesses and do damage, real damage, monetary damage. So that is an established trend over the last several years. So the other manifestation of this would be that you can buy these tools as just an average person without technical skill, just out on the open internet. So tools to make your own malware are just a couple of clicks away. And once you pay for them, you can launch your own cyber attacks to steal information or damage businesses or other entities on the internet. 2013 and 14 specifically had one kind of malware called ransomware, which really became popular. This software as well can be deployed using tools that are purchased on the internet. And what ransomware does, if you create a piece of ransomware and deploy it by sending email that has links to the malware, innocent people that are reading their email think that they really have an attachment they're supposed to download. They click on the download, and once the ransomware installs itself, it goes and encrypts data on the workstation or on the network that the computer is connected to. So those files, once they're encrypted, are unusable. They're protected from opening unless you have the secret code to unlock them. So the next step in the malware called ransomware is a pop-up message that extorts money from the person who has the ransomware on their computer. This ransomware message will tell the user they need to click through and pay online a ransom to get their data unencrypted and back into their hands. The FBI does not advocate clicking through and paying these ransoms. Rather, the FBI and our firm as well recommends that a good backup plan of having your data protected is a better measure. To protect for this, it also deters the the bad actors here from profiting from this, and therefore encouraging them to continue doing it. So ransomware, it's been a serious problem and has cost businesses and individuals many files and many hours of work and actual dollars to recover from those damages. There's a good graph here that describes the general strategy here for cybersecurity preparedness. And cybersecurity would be the general term for all information security measures that protect data. As you can see on the graph here, the x-axis depicts the size of the business, and as businesses get larger, the red line on the graph describes the cyber exposure as increasingly at a rate that is larger as the business gets larger, and it's at an accelerated rate as the business gets larger. So that doesn't mean that there's no risks in small business. It just means that risks are beginning to increase as the business gets larger. And the ideal goal would be to keep the cyber protection measures, that would be the green line, to stay ahead of that curve as depicted on the graph. Also depicted on this graph is the blue line of agility, which would be how quickly a business can react or change their processes or cybersecurity measures. And as you can see, that decreases as the businesses are larger. So small businesses have an advantage that they are very agile, but they also need to make sure that the cyber protection is ahead of that cyber exposure curve. That's a visual representation of the fact that small businesses are in this sweet spot for having information assets that are worth hacking and having relatively low cybersecurity preparedness systems in place and controls. So it's an additional point that small businesses do need to be aware of this cybersecurity risk, and they need to do something about it. So the business owners need to not be technical to get this done. They need to just be aware of these risks and understand that the information assets they have are valuable. Even a small business who has information systems has information that is valuable to malicious actors and needs to be protected. So what are the responses to these threats? Well, large businesses have responded to this threat for many years. It's a established part of just doing business in the large business world to have cybersecurity measures and systems in place. It's been a board level discussion for large businesses for many years. As reliance on IT has increased, cybersecurity discussions have also increased. The way that large businesses handle cybersecurity risk is in a disciplined and documented and thorough program, cybersecurity program. So that means that they have a cycle that they follow of risk assessment, of defining what the risks are and what they're trying to protect, establishing cybersecurity controls, and then auditing those controls and making sure that the risks as they change are also having controls that are changing, and that the controls are tested to ensure that they really are providing protection. And then this formality and documentation level for large businesses almost always exceeds the budget and capabilities of small businesses. So that's why we're here today to talk about what can small businesses do about cybersecurity. A couple other illustrations here that you should be aware of. For large businesses, cybersecurity standards have been out there for a long time. ISO, the International Standards Organization, has had the 27,000 certifications, which define cybersecurity standards. FISMA would be the Federal Information System Management Act of 2002, which defines requirements for federal information systems. Those standards are freely available and are very, very thorough. SSAE 16 is formerly known as SAS 70. That's a standard which affects the financial sector of the economy. And all of these are certification standards, but are well beyond the capabilities of small business to attain. So again, we're here to discuss what can small businesses do to prepare themselves, at least on reasonable scale compared to these standards. There are tools out there for small businesses. The federal government has also helped respond to these threats for cybersecurity because it's a national security threat. There are many small businesses, many more small businesses than there are large businesses. It's a very large portion of the economy. So in 2008, the Comprehensive National Cybersecurity Initiative was established by President Bush, and that initiative was endorsed by President Obama right after he was elected, and really that had several goals in there. I've listed them out here. The ones that affect small businesses I've italicized. So obvious goals would be that the federal government wants to improve their network security. So that was one of the action items on this initiative. And then coordinating and redirecting research and development efforts directly affects small businesses. One of the tools that I'm recommending is an outgrowth of this effort. Another goal is to connect cybersecurity operations centers to enhance situational awareness. This means that the operations centers which are out there monitoring cybersecurity threats are encouraged and helped under this initiative to talk to each other so that there's more of a network of cybersecurity awareness so that better responses and preparedness can be established. The initiative also establishes a cybersecurity counterintelligence plan. This would be there's numerous components to this. The military is involved as well, but to be prepared by knowing what the enemy on a cybersecurity level is trying to do to United States businesses and assets. And lastly, expanding cybersecurity education. There's some tools available from the federal government on this front which are helpful for small businesses. So just a couple of words on the main reference documents and reference tools that the research and development part of that initiative has developed. The National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, has, as a response to the FISMA legislation of 2002, been maintaining a series of very thorough and very detailed documents on IT security, and that's known as the 800 series of special publications. There are manuals for information system auditing and information system controls, which are hundreds of pages long. The two most popular documents are in the neighborhood of 600 pages long each. So very, very detailed documents that cover information security. Now, more recently, literally February of 2014, the Cybersecurity Framework, that's an abbreviated title, but you'll see more about this later. This has been a new document released by the federal government, which does a more brief job of describing what type of system should be put in place to establish a cybersecurity program in a business or organization. So that's a mere 60-some pages long, and that document we'll talk more about later. So we need some tools to be able to establish a cybersecurity program. So let's talk about some tools. Next, controls. We need to understand the term controls. When we talk about controls, these are measures which are going to affect or establish known outcomes or limitations on an information asset. So that means that we are trying to control what is happening with information. So establishing these measures or processes or technologies will better protect information from being disclosed or accessed by people who shouldn't have access, or changed without knowledge of the owner of the information. So controls, very important concept and definition to understand. So cybersecurity controls specifically are really, it's easily defined into two groups of main types of cybersecurity controls. That would be application controls. These are controls that are technical. They are establishing confidentiality. That means that the information is protected and not disclosed to people who shouldn't have access. The integrity of that information is maintained so that it's not modified without knowledge of the and approval of the information owner. And the information is always accessible, so controls that are application level controls are able to ensure that data does not go offline or go missing or becomes inaccessible. Application controls restrict access in many cases, so that's the technical side of cybersecurity controls. General controls would be the other category of more processes and procedures. So those operate above and beyond IT operations or technical controls and help in the same goal of establishing better cybersecurity. All right, so specific tools here. Let's get into the detail on the cybersecurity framework I mentioned in just a previous slide here. The National Institute of Standards and Technology has produced the cybersecurity framework, as I mentioned, in February of 2014. And this digests the large business and large entity systems for cybersecurity from the 800 series down to a much more manageable document, and really explains to a smaller entity how to establish a cybersecurity program without having to have a full department that uses the very detailed 800 series documents. So a very important description of how to run a cybersecurity program and establish one, and that's why it's called a framework. In the end of this document, the cybersecurity framework specifically says to recommends and endorses a tool from the Council on Cybersecurity, and that is a consortium of business and government entities which have gotten together and they've produced the critical security controls for effective cyber defense. It's known as the CSC for critical security controls. This is the set of controls to be selected, and the cybersecurity framework recommends that businesses use the CSC to select the controls and establish their cybersecurity program. So this document, the CSC, explains the cybersecurity controls in detail, but not as much detail as the 800 series from NIST. There are 20 major controls, and each of those controls have various numbers of sub-controls. So there's a grand total of 182 controls in version 5.1 of the CSC. So a very important reference document. So what does this all mean for a small business? Well, you need to get started to make a cybersecurity program, and here is a summary of how to do that. Referenced an author that has put together a simple acronym of A through F there, which helps you remember how to, a mnemonic that helps you to remember the steps to establish a cybersecurity program. So we're going to get into each of those steps in a little bit of detail. Step one would be assessing risk. So what that means, as I briefly alluded to earlier, is that business needs to first look at what assets are being protected and what the threat level is. So some businesses have more information assets than others, and that needs to be taken into account. Now, this needs to be documented. This cannot be just informal, but it doesn't need to be a multi-volume work. This just needs to be utilizing the tools I mentioned earlier with the cybersecurity framework. It walks you through the concepts of doing a risk assessment program, both of how the risk assessment is now and how we want it to be viewed later. So how we want to position the entity or business in its cybersecurity. So this needs to be updated regularly. I'd recommend at least an annual review. It just makes sense to take a look at this annually when the business is able to set aside time to spend time on this as a long-term health as and hygiene initiative for business. So step 1 is assessing risk. So step 2, building the policy is the next step. You need to be able to formulate what the policy of the business is with regard to cybersecurity, and you need top management to buy into this. This can't be done just by middle managers or staff level people. This has to come from the top. It has to be important to the ownership and management team. Policies have to be written down, otherwise they're not accountable, and they have to be shared with employees, and the employees need to be accountable to it, including the owners. So using templates is the easy way to get started on this, but the templates, if you use one, really needs to be reviewed in all detail. You can't copy and paste a effective cybersecurity policy. Policies need to be documented and customized for the risk level that was assessed in the first step. So once the policy is established, then the third step is to choose controls. So using the CSC, looking through every control that's in that document and establishing what is the current state of the controls in the business. So cybersecurity controls are there. Some of them are built into systems. But some of them are already established and chosen by a business, and some of them are not. So all of them need to be documented as to the current state and then also future state that's planned. So if there's a specific plan for control, certain control to be established by a certain date, then that can be documented in the results. So the whole point of this is to have these controls establish your cybersecurity program for your business right above that cybersecurity preparedness curve. That'd be the red line on the graph we saw earlier. So erring on the side of caution and having least privilege policies is the best, but not always achievable goal. That is to try to allow access to on only a need-to-know basis by each person in their role in the business. And many of the controls in the CSC talk about this. But the practicality of getting a control system that is feasibly deployed it's a significant challenge, because there's so many possible controls, and you still want to allow people to use the system without major difficulty or major inefficiency in using the system. All right, so once we've chosen the controls, we got to deploy those controls. It's step D. And deploying the controls means that either you're using system features that you've already got on your information system, or acquiring technology, or making new procedures to control access, establishing these controls. So often a small business won't have these resources in-house. If by small business we mean business is large enough to have its own IT department, then by all means that department needs to be critically involved in establishing and deploying controls. But in many cases, getting a consulting firm involved to help with this process is a wise choice. One other minor point, if you've got a choice between two products that can do two different things to establish controls, it is efficient to get fewer products to do the job of more than one control. So sometimes certain cybersecurity products can establish many different controls, dozens even, from the CSC. Step E, the last step in this cybersecurity life cycle, is to educate. So if upper management has been involved in this conversation dealing with the risk assessment, they are becoming educated about cybersecurity already. So that's very positive. Cybersecurity awareness should be part of the controls and policies. So teaching that cybersecurity awareness happens during your discussion about policies with employees. So these items all mesh together. Establishing cybersecurity awareness is itself a helpful control. So that just talking about the risks and making people aware of the risks helps to lower those risks. Again, this needs to be revisited regularly. So again, an annual review is my suggestion, and all of these steps A through F should be followed on a regular basis. This should be an annual cycle to keep these systems healthy and adjusted to respond to the risks that are out there. Step F, the final step in the cycle, is testing to make sure that these controls are really effective and have a separate party involved in this. So therefore, if you had an internal IT department establish the cybersecurity program, certainly you're going to want to have a separate party, an impartial party, confirm that the controls are effective and that nothing has been missed in the design. So very briefly, I just want to recap the major points. So as a business owner, you need to know that cybersecurity is critical to your business operation. This is not just a selling point for new technology to buy more IT resources. This is a protection of a company asset that is critical to business operations and has real costs, sometimes taking a business out of business if they've been hacked. So it's very serious and important. I also recommend these two resources, the National Cybersecurity Framework, the NIST Cybersecurity Framework rather, and then the CSC, the Critical Security Controls Resource. Those are the two reference frameworks and documents to proceed through the cybersecurity life cycle. That's the mnemonic A through F there, to produce an effective cybersecurity program. So thanks for listening. I wanted to briefly show you my references that I talked about during this presentation. So all credit where credit is due. And if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to discuss further. Any questions you might have? This is one of my favorite subjects. So there's my contact information. Feel free to give me a call or an email. Thanks for listening.